To some people, the entire world is one big joke, but not necessarily the ha-ha kind.
Justice matters. Justice.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we will explore the comic book origins of the comedian.
Just a matter of time, I suppose.
As with most comic book characters, there are often reimaginings and different versions to a character's past. We have chosen to primarily follow the storyline which unfolded in 1986's Watchmen number 1 and 2, which was expanded upon in 2012's Before Watchmen, Minutemen numbers 1 to 4.
I've done some bad things. I did bad things to women. I shot kids.
Like most of the Watchmen, the comedian possessed no superpowers and was merely a man built like a tank. His massively muscled body made him a dangerous opponent, but even more formidable was his amoral ruthlessness. The comedian fought to win, at any cost, a trait only rivaled by his future teammate, Rorschach. Details about the comedian's origin are sketchy. When readers were introduced to him in the first pages of Watchmen number 1, he was kind of already dead, and it was his death which set in motion the plot of the landmark miniseries. Flashbacks throughout the series, especially the first 2 issues, filled in a few details about this problematic hero.
It rains on the just and the unjust alike. The comedian has a little bit of both.
In his civilian identity as Eddie Blake, the comedian had been thrown from his window and fell hundreds of feet to his death. The police investigating the death wanted to keep the murder quiet, hoping that the violent vigilante known as Rorschach wouldn't get involved. At this point in the story, costumed crime fighters are already outlawed, and the last thing the police want is a vigilante resurgence. But Rorschach conducted his own investigation on the death of the comedian, former Watchman turned government operative and assassin.
The order is rapidly fading.
Rorschach visited other active or retired costume fighters to warn them of his theory that if the comedian was killed, the rest of them might also be targeted. In a flashback, readers saw a young comedian in a meeting of the 1940 superhero group known as the Minutemen. No information was given about how he became the comedian, but a text piece indicated that he was inspired by some of these heroes to put on a costume and clean up the waterfront. It was at that same meeting in the 1940s that a rather unsettling side of the comedian was revealed.
I said no, Eddie.
No, spelled Y-E-S.
No, spelled N-O.
He had tried to rape fellow Minuteman and fellow hero Silk Spectre. Fortunately, he was stopped in this by the intervention of another hero, Hooded Justice.
Bastard!
The Minutemen were considered a success, but short-lived, as a series of unfortunate events led to the deaths of many of their members, and the surviving heroes went their separate ways. Flash forward to the 1960s, and the comedian was attending another superhero meeting, this time the first meeting for a group hoping to call themselves the Crime Busters. His cynical assessment of world problems frustrated the heroes. In fact, his attitude was so negative that he essentially put the kibosh on that group right there and then, even going so far as to burn the display the group's intended leader had prepared for the meeting, symbolically destroying the optimistic worldview that the group had hoped to strive for. Jumping back to present day, Rorschach visited Moloch, a retired supervillain. He learned that the comedian had come to see Moloch recently. Drunk, the comedian had babbled about something he had recently encountered which clearly unnerved him.
It's a joke. It's all a joke.
Of course, to reveal what the comedian was crying about would give up the whole story of the Watchmen, but suffice to say that he had finally learned that the joke was on him, as well as everybody else. In 2012, DC released a series of prequel comics which expanded a little more on the background of the Watchmen characters. The ones that focused specifically on the comedian gave an insight into his early days as a crime fighter, and extensively detailed his time in Vietnam. While none of these new revelations actually make the character any more likable, they do humanize him to a certain extent.
What happened to the American dream? What happened to the American dream? It came true. You're looking at it.
Are you a fan of the cynical comedian? For more comic book origins, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
It's unforgettable too.